I don't even know how to start this, but I guess the best place is the beginning, or maybe the end. Depends how you look at it. A few months ago, on my 42nd birthday, my wife of 12 years handed me divorce papers. Yeah. Just like that. No cake, no dinner, no surprise party with our kids. Just a manila envelope and the coldest smile I've ever seen in my life. The judge granted me everything you own, she laughed, like she was delivering a punchline to a joke only she found funny. I sat there, stunned, staring at the papers while my kids, my actual flesh and blood, stood behind her, arms crossed, dead in the eyes. Don't bother calling us anymore, my son sneered. He used to beg me to play catch with him in the yard. We're legally changing names, my daughter said, voice dripping with venom. She was born with my last name. Carried it with pride until a few months before that day. I didn't argue. Didn't scream. Didn't even cry. I simply nodded and walked out the door with the same dignity I brought into this world. They celebrated at her new mansion that night, laughing, sipping champagne probably bought with my retirement fund. But as the music played, my lawyer delivered an envelope of my own. Later that night, my daughter called me. Hysterical. How could you hide this from us? After 10 years. She was sobbing. Angry. Broken. I only said, you chose your side. Now live with it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to how all this started. Because trust me, the red flags were always there. I just refused to see them. Looking back now, the signs were so obvious it's almost embarrassing. But when you love someone, truly love them, you'll rationalize anything just to keep the dream alive. My wife, Lila, not her real name, and I met in college. She was fiery, sarcastic, sharp-tongued, and honestly, a little intimidating. I was more reserved, the stable guy, the nice one. Somehow, that opposites attract thing kicked in, and within 2 years we were married. 12 years and 2 kids later, I thought we were solid. But about a year ago, she started changing. At first, it was subtle. More nights out, with the girls. A new wardrobe that didn't really match her old taste, tighter clothes, younger styles. She'd laugh louder at texts and lock her phone when she used to leave it lying around, wide open. I remember waking up one night around 2 a.m. and she wasn't in bed. I found her downstairs, lights off, whispering into her phone. She jumped when I walked in and said she was talking to her cousin about a breakup. Right. Because that's what people do at 2 a.m. in the dark. Still, I brushed it off. Told myself she was just going through a phase. Midlife thing. Maybe she was bored and needed a little space. I didn't want to seem controlling. Hell, I wanted to be understanding. I figured if I gave her room, she'd come back. Instead, the distance grew. She stopped making dinner. Stopped joining family movie nights. Our conversations turned into cold logistical exchanges. Did you pick up the dry cleaning, or don't forget the parent-teacher meeting? Intimacy? Gone. And if I even brought it up, she'd snap. You're smothering me. Maybe if you hit the gym once in a while. God, do you even hear yourself? It hurt. A lot. But I still clung to the hope that would find our way back. Then came the moment that shook everything loose. I picked up her phone by accident. We have identical models, and mine was dead. She had left hers charging in the kitchen. I was in a rush to text my boss, so I didn't realize it wasn't mine until the screen lit up, and I saw a message. Can't wait to see you tonight. Hope is still as clueless as ever. I froze. My stomach dropped. And in that single second, the house of cards I'd been building for a year collapsed. The moment I read that message, it felt like someone drove a nail straight through my chest. I stood there, frozen, phone in hand, trying to breathe. My ears rang. My hands shook. Can't wait to see you tonight. Hope is still as clueless as ever. That single sentence burned itself into my memory like a brand. I didn't open the rest right away. I couldn't. I didn't want to believe what I'd just seen. But once you crack the lid on a secret like that, it doesn't close again. Curiosity turned into dread as I sat down at the kitchen table and started scrolling. Her inbox was a damn novel. And I was the idiot main character who never saw it coming. She'd been cheating for almost a year, with multiple men. Different names. Different tones. Some messages were flirty and cutesy, others, graphic. Too graphic. I read things that made me sick to my stomach. Places they'd met. Hotels. Times when I thought she was at a spa or work conference, all lies. She even called one of them baby, something she hadn't called me in years. The worst part. She talked about me. Mocked me. Called me a walking wallet, a spineless dad, and even bragged about how easy it was to manipulate me. One message said, "He'll never see it coming. He's still begging for scraps." I almost feel bad. Almost. I couldn't feel my body. Just this swirling cold inside me. I wanted to scream, throw the phone, punch a wall, but I didn't. I just sat there, silent, until I heard the garage door open. She was home. I didn't even bother to pretend I hadn't seen it. I handed her the phone. "So, how long?" I asked. Calm. Too calm. That scared her more than yelling would've. She blinked, eyes wide, then scoffed. "You shouldn't be going through my stuff." That's what she opened with. Not denial. Not regret. Just attitude. Like I was the problem. I pressed again. "How many?" She smirked. Smirked. "Does it matter? You weren't exactly husband of the year." That hit me harder than any slap. It was like the past decade didn't mean anything to her. The nights I stayed up with our kids while she went on girls' trips, the sacrifices, the support, it was nothing. She sat down and calmly poured herself a glass of wine. "Let's not make a big scene. You already knew things were broken." I asked her if she ever loved me, and she laughed. "You were convenient," she said. "You gave me a house, 2 kids, and financial stability. But let's be honest, the spark died years ago. You're more like a roommate." That's when something inside me snapped. I stood up, walked to the bedroom, packed a bag in silence, and walked out the front door without looking back. But I wasn't done. If she thought I'd go quietly, she clearly didn't know me at all. I drove around for hours that night, numb. I didn't even know where I was going. I just kept driving, past our old diner, the park where we used to take the kids, the hospital where she gave birth. Every place held a memory, and now every memory felt like a lie. I slept in my car in the parking lot of a 24-hour gym I never used. I couldn't go to my brother's or a friend's place. I needed time. I needed to think. Over the next few days, I went silent. No contact with her. No contact with the kids. That was the part that hurt most. They didn't even call. Didn't check in. I kept thinking, they must know. They must suspect. But the silence confirmed what I feared, she had poisoned the well. Lila had been setting me up for this for months. Probably longer. She'd been rewriting the narrative at home. Subtle comments. Passive-aggressive digs. Making me look like a negligent husband and father, when in reality I was just trying to keep the house from falling apart. Her plan wasn't just to cheat, it was to replace me entirely. I saw it in the way the kids looked at me the last time I was home. Cold. Disappointed. Like they'd already been coached to see me as the villain in a story I didn't even know was being written. But I wasn't about to let her win. I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, the best family attorney in the city. A friend from college owed me a favor, and he got me in fast. I laid everything on the table. The infidelity. The emotional manipulation. The messages I'd seen. The money being funneled into a private account I didn't even know existed. Yeah, I found that too. He told me something I didn't expect to hear: you have more power than you think. But you have to play it smart. No emotional blow-ups. No texts. Let her think you're broken. That's how we win. So that's what I did. I moved into a cheap apartment on the other side of town. Started working out again. Focused on work. I stayed calm, silent, invisible. Meanwhile, my lawyer gathered every scrap of evidence: bank transfers, hotel receipts, explicit messages. He even got a PI involved to document her current activities. Lila thought I had walked away defeated. She kept posting photos with the kids, tagging them as family time, while I sat quietly collecting proof of how she was spending weekends with different men, rotating them like outfits. Then came my birthday. She showed up with the kids and a smug grin, handed me divorce papers like a birthday card, and delivered her monologue: "The judge granted me everything you own." She was practically glowing. The kids parroted her venom, said they were changing their names, told me not to call again. And I didn't. I just nodded, walked away, and let them celebrate. They moved into the new house a few weeks later. A mansion. Paid for in full. But I knew something they didn't. My lawyer had mailed them an envelope. Inside was something that would make the mansion feel like a prison. They had no idea what was coming. Inside the envelope my lawyer sent was a motion, a formal petition to the court requesting a fraud investigation into the financial division of our marital assets. Accompanying it were pages of documentation, secret accounts Lila had hidden, unauthorized wire transfers from our joint funds, and a detailed report from the private investigator. Every dinner, every hotel visit, every fake work trip, timestamped and verified. And that wasn't even the worst of it. See, what Lila didn't realize was that the mansion wasn't paid for in full. It was bought through a new LLC, one I had co-signed for years ago to help her start a consulting business. She never closed it. Legally, that house. Still part of my business holdings. And any asset purchased through a jointly held entity, especially one funded with marital funds, is subject to review, and potentially liquidation. Her little victory party was premature. When the envelope landed in her hands, I imagine she tore it open expecting a surrender. Maybe a half-hearted apology. Maybe just silence. Instead, she got served with a legal storm that made her birthday stunt look like a prank. I didn't hear from her for 3 days. On the 4th, I got a call, not from her, but from my daughter. She was screaming, crying. "Dad, what is this? How could you hide this from us? After 10 years. I said nothing for a long time. Then finally replied, "You chose your side. Now live with it." Click. That moment was the coldest I've ever felt. But also the clearest. Because the truth is, I didn't just lose a wife. I lost the version of my children I thought I knew. And I don't blame them entirely, she filled their heads with poison. But when I was cast out, humiliated, discarded like some bitter memory, not one of them asked, "What's really going on?" That cuts deeper than anything she did. After the call, everything went quiet again. I kept the pressure on legally. We froze her accounts. The house was now pending asset review. Her Instagram fairy tale came crashing down fast. The comments disappeared. The family posts stopped. And then, for the first time since she served me papers, she showed up at my door. Hair disheveled. No makeup. No smugness. Just Lila, or at least, what was left of her. "Can we talk?" she asked. I let her in. Not because I wanted to. But because I wanted to see how far she'd fall before she realized what she threw away. She sat on the edge of my couch like it might collapse under her, eyes darting around like she was trying to remember the layout of a place she used to rule. She looked lost. But I'd seen enough of her games to know better than to mistake mess for remorse. "I don't know what happened," she began, her voice soft, cracked. "Things just got out of control." That's how she opened. Not with an apology. Not with, "I hurt you" or "I destroyed our family." No, it was things got out of control. Like this was a movie she accidentally fast-forwarded. I didn't say anything. Just folded my arms and stared. She took a deep breath and launched into what I now know was a rehearsed monologue. I was unhappy, I felt invisible, I needed to feel alive again. I know I went about it the wrong way, but I didn't mean for it to get this far. You were always stable, dependable, but I needed passion. Something real. I almost laughed. Passion? She had multiple men like a damn rotation schedule. One of them was 24, a bartender she used to tip with my money. Something real meant a guy who still lived with his mom and couldn't spell commitment if you gave him all the letters. I finally asked, "What do you want?" She paused, hesitated, then delivered the line she thought would break me. "I want to try again. For the kids. For us. I miss our life." Now, that made me laugh. Loud. Bitter. "You miss the life you tried to bury me under." She flinched. I stood up, walked over to the window, and looked out at the grey skyline. "You didn't come here for the kids. Or us. You came because the house isn't yours. The money stopped. The lawyer scared you." Her face turned to stone. The mask slipped. For a second, I saw the woman I used to know, not the one who smiled as she torched my life, but the one who hated losing. And she was losing. "You don't have to be cruel," she muttered. Cruel. I turned around. Cruel is mocking me in your texts. Cruel is turning my children against me. Cruel is laughing as you hand me divorce papers on my birthday. She didn't respond. Then I told her what really broke any chance of forgiveness. I read the messages. All of them. Even the one where you said, "He's so easy to manipulate, it's almost boring." Her face went pale. "And you know what? That was the most honest thing you ever said." She stood up, jaw clenched. "Fine. If that's how you want it." I smiled. "Oh no, Lila. I'm just getting started." She stormed out, slamming the door behind her, the same door she used to kiss me through every morning before going to work. Now, it felt like a wall between two lifetimes. I sat back down. Exhaled. Let the quiet wrap around me. She thought this was the end. But the real fallout had only just begun. 2 days after Lila stormed out of my apartment, I got a message from my son. Just a text. No greeting. No emojis. Just 4 words that hit harder than any of her betrayals. "Can we talk sometime?" I stared at it for a good 5 minutes before replying. My heart was racing. This was the same kid who stood behind his mother like a hired gun, sneering, "Don't bother calling us anymore." The same kid who swore he was legally changing his name. I didn't say yes or no. Just asked, "About what?" He replied, "I don't know. I just want to understand." We met the next day at a diner halfway between his school and my apartment. He looked older than I remembered. Tired. Confused. Guarded, but not hostile. He ordered a milkshake like he used to when he was 10. We sat in silence for a while before he finally spoke. "Why didn't you fight back?" I blinked. "What do you mean?" He sighed. "When Mom served you the papers. When we told you we were done. You didn't yell. You didn't argue. You just left. Like you gave up." I nodded slowly. Because if I had fought back that day, it would have looked exactly like she said I'd act. Angry. Unstable. Like I was the problem. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "We saw your messages. The envelope. Mom told us you forged things. That you were trying to hurt her." Of course she did. "Did you believe her?" I asked. He hesitated. I wanted to. But then, things stopped adding up. She's been different. On edge. Snapping at us. And she's still seeing that guy. The one we were never supposed to know about. He looked down at his hands. I think I made a mistake, Dad. That broke me. I didn't let it show, but inside I cracked wide open. You didn't make a mistake, I said gently. You believed your mom. That's not a crime. But now you're here. That's what matters. He nodded, tears brimming. Do you think the others will see it too? I wanted to say yes. I really did. But the truth? I didn't know. Lila was a master manipulator. She'd twisted years of resentment into a weapon and aimed it right at me. But all it takes is one crack in the dam. He was that crack. Before we left, he said, I want to come over next weekend. Maybe stay for a while. I didn't hug him. Didn't make it weird. I just said, the door's open. That night, my phone lit up again. This time, it was my daughter. No words. Just a missed call. The cracks were spreading. When I saw my daughter's name flash across my screen, I didn't answer right away. My hands hovered. 1,000 thoughts fired off at once. Was it a mistake? Did she pocket dial me? Was she calling to scream at me again? Or maybe, just maybe, she was starting to question things too. I waited a few minutes. She didn't leave a voicemail. So I sent a text. I saw you called. Everything okay? She replied almost instantly. Can I come over? I need to ask you something. Just you. That just you was loaded. It told me Lila didn't know she was reaching out. Maybe she didn't even want her mom to find out. I told her yes and gave her the address. She showed up that night. No makeup. Hoodie. Face tired, but not angry, just confused. She stepped inside slowly, like she wasn't sure she belonged there anymore. I haven't been here since, she trailed off. Since the divorce party, I finished, trying to hide the bitterness. She winced. She sat on the couch, legs folded up like a little girl again. I waited. Then she asked, Did Mom cheat on you? I didn't lie. I didn't soften it. I just nodded. Yes. With more than one man. For almost a year. Maybe longer. Her eyes welled up instantly. She said you cheated, she whispered. Of course she did. She said you were hiding money. That you were dangerous. That you were going to cut us off. I sat down across from her, calm and steady. Do I look like I've been dangerous to anyone? She shook her head. I didn't want to believe her. But then I saw her screaming at Evan. Accusing him of being a traitor. She slapped his phone out of his hand when she saw he texted you. That explained the call from my son. Lila was losing her grip. And in doing so, she was exposing herself. I walked to my drawer, pulled out a folder, and placed it in front of my daughter. Here. Read these. All of them. You're old enough to know the truth now. She hesitated, then opened it. Inside were printed messages, bank statements, receipts, screenshots, everything I had compiled and passed to my lawyer. She sat there for over an hour, flipping through pages, eyes darting back and forth in disbelief. Her breathing turned sharp. Then she whispered something that cracked me in half. She told us you were the enemy. And we believed her. She started sobbing. Real, body-shaking sobs. I didn't rush to comfort her. I let her feel it. She needed to. Then I handed her a tissue and said, I never stopped being your father. You just stopped looking for me. She looked up, tears still falling. How do we fix this? I exhaled. One step at a time. That night, she stayed. We talked for hours, about school, life, things we hadn't shared in over a year. And at one point she said, I don't think Mom knows who she is anymore. I replied, she never did. She just got really good at pretending. And just like that, my second child came home. But Lila wasn't done. Not even close. She had one more card to play. And it was her nastiest one yet. I should have known she wouldn't go down quiet. Lila had built her whole life on appearances: flawless family, loyal husband, perfect kids, enviable home. The illusion was her currency. And now, it was evaporating in front of her. The kids were slipping. Her financial chokehold was unraveling. The mansion was under legal review. And worst of all, I hadn't broken down. She needed control back. Desperately. So she did what snakes do when cornered: she struck. 3 days after my daughter visited, I was served again, this time, not divorce-related. A formal petition for full custody of both our kids. With attached statements accusing me of emotional instability, financial abuse, and long-term manipulation of our children. And to twist the knife deeper, she alleged that I had been grooming my daughter into turning against her. I stared at the papers in complete disbelief. My lawyer called before I even processed the last line. "We're going to destroy this in court," he assured me. But this is vicious. The thing is, I expected attacks. But not like this. Not using our kids as weapons. She claimed I was mentally unfit, that I had distorted their perception of her, that I had corrupted their relationship with their primary caregiver. Never mind that they were both almost adults. Never mind that I hadn't even contacted them until they reached out. She attached fake email printouts, clumsily edited, obviously forged. One of them looked like I was encouraging my son to lie in court. Another suggested I had paid off our daughter's tuition to win her love back. I called my son. Told him everything. He went silent for a full minute. Then said, "I'll testify." So will she. Mom's completely lost it. When I spoke to my daughter, she was already crying. Why is she doing this? Doesn't she know we're not children anymore? She doesn't want to lose, I said quietly. That's all it ever was for her, a game she had to win. The next week was chaos. Emergency hearings. Temporary restraining order requests. Background checks. Therapy appointments. But here's what she didn't expect. I wasn't alone anymore. This time, both kids sat beside me in court. And when the judge looked over the false evidence and turned to my daughter and asked, "Have you ever been manipulated by your father?" she answered without flinching. "No. But I have been manipulated by my mother. Every day. For years." Boom. The silence that followed was deafening. Lila sat across from us, her face completely hollow. No fake tears. No charm. Just rage barely held in check by foundation and hairspray. The judge dismissed her petition on the spot. Sanctioned her for false allegations. Ordered a psychological evaluation before she could even file again. As we walked out, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. But whole. She tried to ruin me. Tried to turn my children into pawns. And now, she was out of moves. But the most unexpected moment was still to come. After the court ruling, things settled, for about a week. No calls from Lila. No surprise visits. No legal ambushes. Just silence. My son moved in officially. My daughter split her time, but it was clear where her heart was leaning. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't still on edge. With someone like Lila, calm usually comes before the next storm. But this time, the storm came from me. While digging through old storage boxes to find my son's birth certificate for school registration, I found something odd, a folder labeled "Medical, Confidential." I didn't remember filing it, and it wasn't in my handwriting. Inside was a copy of an old contract. One Lila made me sign 10 years ago when she was dealing with some kind of personal matter involving her sister. It all came flooding back. She'd asked me to sign confidentiality papers regarding a surrogacy arrangement between her and her sister, Lindsay. At the time, she said Lindsay couldn't carry a child, and she, Lila, had offered to be the surrogate. But everything had to be discreet and legally clean. She was insistent. Emotional. I didn't ask too many questions, I trusted her. I signed the paperwork. Sealed it. Forgot it. But something didn't sit right now. I took the document to my lawyer. He raised an eyebrow, read through it, and said, "You might want to dig into this a little deeper." So I did. And what I found made my blood run cold. Lila hadn't been a surrogate. She had passed off her own child as Lindsay's, a child conceived with one of her early affairs, long before I ever suspected a thing. The medical reports confirmed it. The timeline, the lab data, the hospital bills, all pointed to one undeniable truth. She'd gotten pregnant. Lied to me about it. Lied to her sister. Lied to the child. Lied to everyone. And somehow, I had signed off on it all. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was deception on a nuclear level. This wasn't about passion. Or loneliness. Or boredom. This was fraud. Calculated, surgical betrayal carried out over a decade. So, I did what I do best now. I stayed quiet. I waited. And then I mailed a copy of the report to Lindsay. No note. No explanation. Just the truth. It took 48 hours before the explosion hit. Lindsay showed up at Lila's doorstep, screaming, sobbing, completely unhinged. Neighbors heard it. Someone recorded it. And soon, every lie Lila built her perfect life on began to unravel. She hadn't just destroyed her marriage. She had detonated her family. And the fallout was far from over. It was supposed to be just a dinner. Lila had texted the kids. Said she wanted to talk as a family. That she had made mistakes and wanted to explain. My daughter was skeptical. My son flat out refused. But I told them we should go. Not to make peace. To end the war. We met at her new house, the one she fought so hard for and now could barely afford to keep. It looked different. Cold. The sparkle had dulled. The furniture felt borrowed. The place wasn't a home, it was a showroom built on secrets. Lila greeted us like a stranger hosting a fake reality show. "Hi," she said, fake smile and all. "I'm really glad you came." We sat down at the massive dinner table, one of those long, pretentious ones where no one feels close. She served store-bought lasagna and poured wine like this was some kind of reconciliation. Then she launched into it. "I know things have been messy," she began, tone dripping with forced vulnerability. "But I want you to know that everything I did because I thought it was the best for this family." My son raised an eyebrow. My daughter said nothing. "And I know I made mistakes," she continued. "But your father," she looked at me, still trying to control the narrative, "wasn't always honest either." There it was. The pivot. I leaned back. "Go ahead, Lila. Tell them what I did. Please." She looked caught for a moment. Then composed herself. "He's been manipulating you. Using his money. Turning you against me. It's abuse, and it needs to stop." That's when I stood up and placed a small box on the table. Inside, a USB drive, several printed photos, and a copy of the original surrogacy contract. "What's that?" she asked, tone tight. "Everything," I said. "All the lies. The affairs. The money transfers. And the truth about your surrogacy for Lindsay." She froze. My daughter looked confused. My son was already piecing it together. I continued calmly. "You didn't carry your sister's baby. You carried your own. You lied to everyone. To me. To her. To that child. And I signed the paperwork thinking I was helping. But now? Now I've made sure the truth is out." "Liar," she snapped. "That's not true. He's making it up." But the voice that answered wasn't mine. It was my daughter's. "I saw the hospital records, Mom. The dates. The DNA test Lindsay did last week. You weren't a surrogate. You were hiding a child from an affair. Lila stood up, face red, hands trembling. You don't understand. My son stood too. No, you don't. We believed you. We turned on him. You let us hate him while you smiled and lied. She tried again, tears falling now, real ones, maybe, or maybe just desperation. But we were done. We're done here, I said. Enjoy your house, Lila. While you still have it. We walked out. Together. Behind us, her perfect world crumbled into screams. After that dinner, everything happened fast. Quicker than even I expected. Lindsay didn't just confront Lila, she filed charges. Fraud. Emotional distress. Civil liability for misrepresentation of parental identity. Turns out, she had a lawyer friend who'd been waiting for a reason to burn bridges, and this gave her the perfect excuse. The woman Lila once called her sister soulmate now wanted to see her in court. And she had the paperwork, the DNA results, and every reason to go scorched earth. But Lindsay wasn't the only one preparing fire. My lawyer filed a new petition the very next day, motioning for a reversal of property settlement based on fraud and willful concealment. In plain English, we were going after the house, her business accounts, the hidden savings, and the assets she siphoned from our joint account during the affair. And this time, the judge didn't hesitate. Lila had already been sanctioned for her fake custody claims. Now, with proof of long-term deception, financial, legal, and personal, the court saw a pattern. A deeply disturbing one. She was ordered to submit to a full forensic audit. Her bank accounts, devices, and even her personal emails were all placed under review. You could practically hear the panic from across town. Her lawyer, who I suspect she found through some social media ad, tried to stall. Filed objections. Claimed emotional duress. It didn't work. The judge was done playing nice. 2 weeks later, I stood in court as the ruling was handed down. The mansion reverted back into marital assets and placed up for liquidation. The secret business account frozen and redirected to repay misappropriated funds. My retirement fund reimbursed from her settlement share. Legal fees all on her. And the cherry on top, I was granted exclusive ownership of the company we had once co-managed on paper. She had used it as a shell to launder her affair money. Now, she couldn't even step foot in the building. As we stepped out of the courtroom, she came rushing after me. No more smugness. No more designer shoes or fake tears. Just a woman unraveling in real time. This isn't fair, she cried. You turned them against me. You ruined my life. I turned around slowly. Calm. Cold. No, Lila. You ruined your life. I just stopped helping you hide it. And then I walked away. The same way I walked away from our house the day she handed me divorce papers, except this time, I wasn't the broken man she thought I was. I was the one holding the matches. And her kingdom burned to ash. Life after Lila wasn't easy, but for the first time in years, it was mine. The apartment I used to hate started to feel like a home. My son had moved in full-time, my daughter split her weeks between us. We cooked together, we laughed again. They were learning who I was, not the man Lila described, but the one who'd been there the whole time, just buried under her lies. I got back into old hobbies. Woodworking, hiking, even joined a local volunteer group that built homes for veterans. I'd forgotten what it felt like to wake up without dread. Then, out of nowhere, a knock came at the door. It was him. One of Lila's affair partners. Not the bartender or their co-worker, this one was different. Older, dressed like he just came from church, holding a manila folder and a face full of guilt. I didn't say a word. Just stared. He shifted on his feet. You don't know me, but I know you. My name's Howard. I was with Lila. A few years ago. I raised an eyebrow. You and a dozen others. He nodded. Yeah. I didn't know she was married. She told me she was divorced. Said you were abusive. I believed her. For a while. I crossed my arms. Why are you here? He held up the folder. Because I didn't know she was lying until recently. And now that I do, I want to make it right. I kept copies of everything. Emails. Texts. Bank transfers. Photos. She used me, and not just emotionally. She used my business, my name. She borrowed money she never paid back. I lost my marriage too. I took the folder and opened it. Sure enough, it was all there. Messages that matched the timeline of our marriage. Proof of overlap. Financial records that showed she'd used him the same way she used me. She hadn't just lied to me. She'd run the same game on other men. And ruined lives in the process. I don't want revenge, Howard said. I just want the truth to count for something. It did. We submitted the new evidence to the court, strengthening the fraud case. It reopened financial damages from other civil suits. Lila was now facing multiple claims, not just from me, but from others she had manipulated. Her carefully constructed world was collapsing from every angle. Howard left that day with a quiet nod. I never saw him again. But he gave me something rare, validation from the outside. Proof I wasn't crazy. Proof I wasn't alone. That night, my daughter sat on the couch beside me, looking through some of the new documents. She really did all this, she whispered. Yeah, I said. She did. Do you ever miss her? I paused. No. I miss who I thought she was. But that person never existed. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I'm glad you're still here. So was I. But there was one final piece of this story still to fall into place. And it came from the last person I ever expected. I thought I was done. Done with Lila, done with the pain, done with the games. The court battles were over. I had the house, the kids, my dignity back. The truth was out there. She'd been exposed, and the weight of that exposure had crushed her. She was nothing now, but the shell of a woman who used to pretend she had it all. I had moved on in every sense of the word. I had rebuilt my life, piece by piece. The kids were thriving. I was thriving. Then the letter came. It was one of those thick, official envelopes, the kind you get from lawyers or government offices. The return address had my old lawyer's name on it. My heart sank. Had she found another way to drag us back into her mess? I opened it slowly. Inside was a letter from the lawyer representing Lindsay, Lila's sister. The letter started with an apology. Lindsay admitted she had never fully known the extent of Lila's manipulation, but now that the truth was out, there was something she had to share. Something about the real reason Lila had been so secretive all those years. It wasn't just the surrogacy. There was a deeper reason Lila had been so desperate to keep things buried. Lindsay had been carrying a secret of her own. I read the next few lines twice, trying to make sense of what I was reading. It turned out that Lila's affair didn't just involve men. Years ago, before I even met her, she had been involved in a much darker part of her life. A failed pregnancy, an abortion, and a series of dangerous liaisons. Lindsay had known about it all, but stayed silent, believing Lila would get her life back on track. Then came the worst part. The part that twisted everything I thought I knew. Lila had once been pregnant, with my child. Before I even knew she was having an affair, she had gotten pregnant by another man. She had hidden it from everyone, including me. She had told me that she miscarried, but that was a lie. The baby was healthy and born just months before we met. And that baby? It wasn't just anyone. It was mine. The child had been placed for adoption by Lila in a secret arrangement, an arrangement Lindsay helped keep quiet for years. The baby, now a teenager, had no idea who their real father was. The letter ended with Lindsay's personal apology. She wrote that she had no idea the child was mine, and that she was ashamed she never told me. She didn't expect me to do anything with the information, but she felt I had a right to know. I put the letter down and stared out the window for what felt like hours. My child. I had a child I never knew existed. What do you even do with that? How do you begin to process that after everything? After all the lies? I couldn't do it alone. So, I called my lawyer again. I needed advice. I needed help processing this. He told me the best thing I could do was to find the child. To get a DNA test, just to confirm what I already knew in my gut. But then came the kicker, the child was already searching for me. The letter came with one final instruction, a meeting. The child wanted to meet me. I wasn't ready. I didn't know how I was supposed to feel. But I knew one thing. I had to see this through. I stood outside the cafe for a long time before going in. My hands were sweating, heart pounding like I was 20 again, about to go on a first date. But this wasn't a date. This was something much heavier. I was about to meet the child I never knew I had, the child Lila had erased from my life before it even began. I stepped inside. It was quiet, dim, the kind of place with acoustic guitar playing softly in the background. At the corner table, a teenager sat alone, nervously fidgeting with a bracelet. Thin, tall, maybe 16 or 17. Same dark hair. Same sharp chin. My chin. She stood when she saw me, unsure whether to smile or bolt. I walked over, my throat dry, my words caught somewhere between fear and awe. "Hi," I said. "You're my dad," she said, cutting me off. Soft. Shaky. "I know. Saturday." Her name was Nora. She'd grown up in a good home, adopted by a kind couple who gave her everything. But a few months ago, she got curious. Started digging. Found gaps in her adoption paperwork. Found Lindsay. And then, the rest unraveled. "I don't blame you," she said. "For not being there." That shattered me. Because I should have been there. For her first steps. Her birthdays. Her scraped knees. I missed it all, stolen, not by fate, but by Lila's lies. "You look like your brother," I said quietly. "And your sister." "I've seen pictures," she smiled. "I even saw you once, at a grocery store." I didn't say anything. I was too scared. I smiled. I think I would have fainted. We talked for hours. About school. Books. Her favorite music. Her dreams of becoming a vet. It felt so natural, like she had always been there, just hidden behind a veil Lila kept tightly shut. I asked if she wanted to meet her siblings. She nodded quickly, excited. If they want to. They did. We all met that weekend. The three of them, my kids, sat around a bonfire in my backyard, telling stories, laughing. Something clicked into place that night. Not perfectly. Not cleanly. But honestly. And that was everything. As for Lila, she's alone now. Her lies exposed. Her name in court records. Her reputation shattered. The mansion is gone. The kids won't return her calls. Lindsay filed a restraining order. Even her affair partners vanished once the smoke cleared and there was no illusion left to feed on. I haven't heard from her since. But sometimes, I think about the moment she handed me those divorce papers on my birthday and laughed. "The judge granted me everything you own," she'd said. She was right, for a moment. But now? I have everything that matters. My kids. My name. My peace. And a daughter I was never supposed to know. She chose her side. Now we're the ones living with it.